Hi again. Welcome back to Am I Too Late? This is part 2 of our Knowing Your Numbers mini-series. But before we dive in, let's do a quick recap. Last time, we talked about your 5 key numbers: your income, expenses, pensions, savings, and debts. The idea was to give you a clear snapshot of where you stand financially. Not in a scary or shamey way, but just to see the full picture. Because once you know where you are, it's easier to figure out where you're going next. If you've done the homework from part 1, or even just started it, I just want to say, well done. That's genuinely a big step. It means you're facing your numbers head on. That's something many people avoid, delay, or don't even realize they need to do. I didn't either for a long time. So pat yourself on the back and keep going. By the way, if you're a couple or managing money together with somebody, it's worth thinking about how you want to approach these numbers. Whether you've just moved in together or been married for 20 years, it's not unusual to have never sat down and looked at the numbers properly. But doing this exercise can really help you both see your values and priorities more clearly. You could each do it on your own first, then compare notes, or go through it together from the start. No right or wrong here, just an opportunity to get aligned. I'll probably do a full episode on this soon, so let me know if you'd find that helpful. Okay, so today we're going to move from collecting numbers to understanding what to do with them. What are those numbers showing you, and how can you use that to decide what's most important right now? Because having the numbers is one thing, but understanding what they're telling you, that's when it gets powerful. Let's start with something you might have already spotted if you use my worksheet: your net worth. Net worth can sound a bit intimidating, like something only the super rich talk about. You might have seen the list of richest people in the world, with net worth in the hundreds of billions. I mean, I can't even tell you how many zeros that is, but I can tell you it's more than the GDP of some countries. And did you know that many of them don't even pay personal taxes? I know, like how? Well, I know the answer to this now, so I'll explain this properly in a future episode. But let's just say it's worth knowing, and we'll leave it there for now. But really, a net worth is just a simple equation. Everything you earn minus everything you owe. Assets minus liabilities. It's that simple. For some of us, that number might be negative. For others, it might actually look pretty decent. That was me. I'd be saving, had some assets, and on paper, it looked okay. But I still found myself asking, is this actually enough? And the truth is, I didn't know. Because it's not just about the total. It's about how much of it is actually liquid. Meaning, could you access it if you needed it tomorrow? Cash in the bank is liquid. Equity in a home or pension pot, not so much. At least not quickly or easily. A big part of my net worth was in property. And while that sounds good, it made me realize, if I'm living in that property, then what am I actually living on? That was a wake-up call. So again, net worth isn't about feeling good or bad. It's just a starting point. A snapshot that helps you start asking better questions. Okay, so we'll now move on to the next step. You might have already had a quick look at your bank or credit card statements when putting together your expenses for the 5 numbers. But this time, I would like you to look at it through a different lens: values and behavior. Where is your money actually going? And how much of it reflects what really matters to you? This is what I call a spending audit. It's like shining a light on your habits. Try looking back over the last 2-3 months of spending and start by splitting things into essentials and non-essentials. So essentials are things like rent, mortgage, household bills, groceries, transport, healthcare, and debt repayments. Non-essentials are eating out, alcohol, streaming services, impulse buys, beauty treatments, and convenience spending like Uber and takeaways. Some banking and credit card apps will try to categorize your spending automatically. That can be a helpful starting point, but it's not always accurate. For example, an audit run might include groceries, wine, and something totally random from the middle aisle, like a power drill or heated blanket. But your bank app will probably label it all as groceries. And some non-essentials might totally align with your values. Maybe it's Spotify, which bank app will tag as entertainment. But for you, it's education, maybe creative fuel, or even a bit of sanity. And you go to the gym or fitness class because that makes you feel strong and confident. I'm not saying you should start inventing reason to justify every expense, but if it genuinely adds value and you're not overdoing it, that's fine. Just be honest with yourself about where it sits. It's a luxury, not a basic. And make that call with intention. So use these categories as a helpful guide, not hard rules. You don't have to cut out the things you enjoy. Just be intentional, not an autopilot. And if you notice things that you've been saying yes to out of habit or obligation, maybe it's time to question them. Part of this process is learning where to say no so you can say yes to what matters most. If you want to speed things up a bit or get a second pair of eyes, you can use a simple AI tool like ChatGPT or Gemini. You can take a photo or screenshot of your statement and ask it to sort your spending into essentials and non-essentials. You can also ask it to spot patterns or suggest ways to manage your money better. It's so quick and feels like magic. It saves you hours of faffing around with receipts and spreadsheets and give you a fresh perspective too. And look, if you're not into AI, that's totally okay. You don't have to use it. But the more familiar we get, the easier it becomes to see how it can help with small, everyday things like this. At the end of the day, it all comes back to alignment. Are you spending in a way that reflects what really matters to you? That one question alone can shift the way you see your money. While you're doing this audit, you might notice some habits or expenses that quietly crept in over time. Things that weren't always there. That's what we're going to talk about next. Ever noticed how your spending just sort of grows without you realizing? And it's not just because of inflation. That's lifestyle creep. This is when your expenses slowly rise as your income increases. You get a raise and suddenly you're spending more. Nicer clothes, better holidays, upgraded gadgets, maybe even a new car. It feels justified because you've earned it. But over time, lifestyle creep can eat up all the extra money you thought you were saving. For example, after years of living pretty frugally, I decided to move to a bigger apartment in a nicer, and yes, more expensive area. It was the first time I gave myself permission to enjoy a bit of comfort and upgraded my lifestyle. I moved into a listed building with a 24/7 concierge, and even a private communal space for residents. It felt like a grown-up decision. Since then, life's changed quite a bit. I'm currently living a lot more simply. I do miss some part of that old lifestyle, but it's also made me realize I don't need all that extra to get by. In fact, there was a time I'd queue half an hour for a fancy sourdough loaf or some overpriced pastry from one of those Insta-famous bakeries. It felt like a treat, but it quietly became a habit. These days, I live in France, where a fresh butter croissant costs less than half that. But more importantly, I don't miss the queues or the hype. By the way, a croissant is a boy, but a baguette is a girl. In case anyone was wondering from my first episode, I thought I'd clear that up. And don't judge me on my pronunciation. I'm still learning. Anyway, the point is, that move reminded me that what feels like an upgrade one day can quietly become your new normal the next. And it's worth checking in with yourself from time to time to ask, is this still what I want? Or is it just what I've gotten used to? So to avoid lifestyle creep, here's what you can do. Keep your core lifestyle the same when your income goes up. Decide in advance how much of any raise or extra income you save or invest. And check in with your future goals. Do these new expenses really support the life you're trying to build? This is where the concept of paying yourself first comes in. It means prioritizing your savings before you start spending. It's a way to make sure that your future goals don't always come last after the bills, plans, and treats. You decide how much to set aside, and then you build your lifestyle around what's left, instead of the other way around. You might have also noticed the tracker in the worksheet is split into 3 categories: needs, wants, and savings. That's based on something called 50-30-20 rule. It suggests put in 50% of your income towards needs, 30% to wants, and 20% to savings or debt. It's a useful starting point, but some people say it doesn't quite reflect the cost of living today. You might have heard of newer ratios like 65-20-15, so don't get too hung up on the exact numbers for now. Instead, think of it as a test run. How much can you realistically put aside before it disappears into everyday spending? This step is just about noticing what's possible before lifestyle creep eats it all up. Okay, so before we wrap up, I can't let you go without a bit of homework. But don't worry, it's easier than the last one. Start by calculating your net worth. Assets minus debts. If you've already gathered the numbers, this bit will be quick. Then look back over the past couple of months of spending. As you go through it, try to spot what feels aligned with your values and what might be lifestyle creep. It's not about cutting back for the sake of saving a few pennies. It's about seeing your money choices clearly and asking yourself if any small changes could bring you closer to the life you actually want. Don't overthink it, just be honest. The important thing is to reflect on your money habits and be intentional about your spending. I would love to hear what you discovered, what surprised you, or what small changes you're thinking about making. Feel free to tag me or drop me a message on Instagram at Am I Too Late Podcast. If this episode helped you, please share it with someone who might need a nudge too. And hit follow or subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Because in the next episode, we're stepping back to explore something at the heart of all this. How much is actually enough? You've looked at your numbers, reviewed your spending, and maybe wondered, is this going to get me where I want to be? We'll start putting numbers behind the kind of life you want and what it might really take to get there. Thanks again for listening. And remember, you are not too late. You're here now. And that's what matters. Let's start today. I'll see you in the next one. As always, here's the disclaimer. Everything I share here comes from personal experience and learning. This podcast is for information only and isn't financial advice. Please do your own research and talk to a professional financial advisor to find what's right for you.